Parashat Pinchas. Now, even though the highlight of the parasha is the act that Pinchas did, but in this parasha we find a very interesting mitzvah where we are commanded to do that is the secret of success. And there's a story that happened in the city of Bardichov. About 250 years ago was a tzaddik that lived there. His name is Levi Yitzchak from Bardichov. And he was known to be the Senegor of Am Yisrael, the defense attorney of Am Yisrael, that he always had only good things to say. And there was a story that there was a thief in the city and everybody was being robbed. And they kind of figured out that somebody from the city, because it's like as if he had inside information. If it was a certain family that was traveling and the house was empty, their house would get robbed. Or another family would go to a family affair, they will get robbed. And after investigating and looking for the thief, one day they caught the thief, and sure enough, it was somebody from the community. And of course, they called the police, and he got arrested. And at the time, can you imagine what it means for the Russian police to catch a Jewish thief? So, of course, he was beaten up and tortured, and he wasn't going through an easy time. At some point, Levi Yitzchak from Bardichov felt bad, and he wanted to go and see what he can do. He comes to see him. They open up the cell. He comes out all bruised, full of blood, and he tells them, listen, they're beating me up all the time, they're torturing me. So Levi Yitzchak from Bardichov tells him, well, at least I'm hoping that when you come out, you learned your lesson, right? You're not going to steal anymore. So the thief tells him, what, do you think because it didn't work the first time, I'm going to give up? No, I'm coming out of here, I'm going back to my profession. So Levi Yitzchak from Bardichov leaves the jail. He looks up to Shamayim and he says to Hashem, wow, look at your people. Even you can learn from a thief how to be persistent and not to give up. And look what even from a thief you can learn good midot. So we always ask a question, what is the most important mitzvah? And there is a question, the Maharal from Prague raises a question on a midrash that is found in the midrash that is called En Yaakov. And there is a midrash that it's talking about three sages sitting with each other and raising the question, what is the most important mitzvah that one needs to do? And everybody wants to know that, because if I know what's the best mitzvah, let me just do that mitzvah. And all the rest, I can get a rabbi that will give me a leniency to not to do it. So this midrash is very difficult to understand, and the Maharal from Prague says, I don't understand this midrash. And the midrash explains there are three Tanaim, three sages sitting together and asking what is the greatest mitzvah. The first sage, his name is Ben Zoma, and he says the most important mitzvah we can learn from the verse Shema Yisrael, because Shema Yisrael is when you really meditate on the greatness of Hashem, you show your love and your belief in Hashem, and to really be doing Shema Yisrael, you have to accept on yourself that you will die in the name of Hashem, Mesirut Nefesh. And I think that this is the greatest mitzvah by saying Shema Yisrael. It is a mitzvah from the Torah. Comes a different Tana, his name is Ben Anas, and he says, no, I think the greatest mitzvah in the Torah we can learn from the pasuk, Ve'ahavta le'arecha kamocha. You should love another person like you love yourself. I think this is the most important mitzvah. And sure enough, we know that there was once a goy, a non-Jew, that came to Shammai, and he told him, I want you to convert me. And he's like, okay, why do you want to convert? So he tells him why he wants to convert, and then he tells him, listen, I want you to tell me the entire Torah in one sentence. So Shammai kicked him out of the office and told him, I don't think you're serious. He goes to Hillel and he tells Hillel, I want to convert and I want you to tell me the entire Torah on one leg, on one sentence. So Hillel tells him, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. That's the entire Torah. So this sage Ben Anas says, I think, my opinion is that this is the most important mitzvah in the Torah. Comes another sage, his name is Shimon ben Pazi, and he says, no, the most important mitzvah in the Torah is found in our parasha, Parashat Pinchas, and the mitzvah is, את הכבש האחד תעשה בבוקר, ואת הכבש השני תעשה בין הערביים. We read this twice a day when we pray. And this is called Korban HaTamid. It's a certain sacrifice that they used to do twice a day. One in the morning, one in the evening. And this is a very special sacrifice, and it's called Korban HaTamid. Amazingly, the Hashgacha Pratit is that always when we read the Parasha of Pinchas is around the time of Yud Zayin B'Tammuz. This week will be Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, the 17th day of Tammuz, when the walls of Yerushalayim were broken. And that's the day when that Korban stopped forever, till Mashiach is going to come very soon. Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, less than 2,000 years ago, in the destruction of the Second Temple, was the day that this Korban, the sacrifices, stopped. And up until today we cannot do that. That's why we say it with our words, both in the prayer of Shacharit and the prayer of Mincha. So Shimon ben Pazi says, I think this is the most important mitzvah. Why? Because this mitzvah, it represents persistence. Doing over and over and over and over. And that is really the foundation of following the Torah. Is not what you do, is how you do it. And how often you do it, and that you don't give up. This is called hatmada, persistence. I'm not giving up. Now, in this week's parasha, it's a little bit sad because this is when Moshe Rabbeinu is kind of figuring out that it's close to the end. Last parasha, Miriam passed away, Aaron passed away. It's about the end of the 40 years in the desert, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, okay, I know I'm not going into Eretz Israel. I know it's the end. And he says to Hashem, I need to find my processor. I need to find the person that will come after me. So Hashem says, okay, let's find for you the right person. What do you want the right person to be? Moshe Rabbeinu says, I want the right person that will take over me to have two qualities. The first quality, he has to be patient. Because dealing with Am Israel, dealing with the Jews, you have to be very patient. Because for 40 years they were driving me crazy. With their questions, with their problems, they're not listening to me. The man who's going to take over has to be a very, very patient man. And he has to be able to listen to everybody. And to have patience to listen to everybody's problems and to love everybody. And the second thing I want is a person who is a leader. Not somebody that's being led, rather somebody that's leading the nation. This is the two conditions Moshe Rabbeinu says, I want the processor to be. So Hashem comes to Moshe Rabbeinu and tells him, okay, I think you should announce that Yoshua will be your processor. And suddenly the parasha takes a turn from this story, and it's talking about the mitzvah of the sacrifices that is called Tmidim, the Korban HaTamid that we do in the morning and in the evening, and another sacrifice that we do, it's called Musafim, that we do every Rosh Chodesh and on the festivals. Now we don't have Bet HaMikdash, so we do a prayer. So on Rosh Chodesh we do Tfilat Musaf, the prayer that is called Musaf. We do it on Shabbat, we do it on Yom Tov. So suddenly the portion of the Torah takes a turn, and it's talking about these two mitzvot, of the Tmidim and the Musafim. And the Torah doesn't make mistakes. The Torah is very, very precise. Must be that there is a connection between the story about the decision that Yoshua will be the next leader and these mitzvot. So the story is more explained, the connection is more explained in a story. The story is told in the Midrash that there was once a king, and he had a very special wife, a very special queen that was very devoted to the nation, very devoted to the people, and most of all she was devoted to her kids. And unfortunately she got sick and she was on her deathbed, and at some point she called the king in and she told him, listen, I have one request from you before I leave. I want you to take good care of the kids. I want you to make sure that they grow up with good education, that they're going to grow up to be a mensch, good kids. So the king told her, if you really care so much about the kids, why are you calling me? Call the kids and tell them I have one last wish before I die. Please be a mensch. Please grow up to have good midot. Why are you telling me to do that to the kids? Tell the kids to do that. This story comes to teach us that Moshe Rabbeinu came to Hashem and he told Hashem, I want a good leader that will be able to lead the nation. So Hashem says, why are you telling me to tell the leader to be a good leader? You go now to the nation and tell them, listen, I'm about to leave. Please behave nice after I leave. Why are you putting the responsibility on me? You are their leader. You go and tell them, listen, please behave. I'm about to leave. So Hashem says to Moshe to say that. So Moshe says, okay, I accept. But what do you want me to tell them? What should I tell them that will make them understand and make them behave in a way that they will continue and behaving nice after I leave? So Hashem tells Moshe, tell them to start sacrificing the Korban HaTamid. Tell them to start sacrificing this specific sacrifice that you do one in the morning and one in the evening. And this will be for them the memory, this will be for them the mitzvah that will cause them to constantly remember to behave how they're supposed to behave. Now, like I told you, Hashgacha Pratit is that always we're going to read Parashat Pinchas either on the week of Yud Zayin B'Tammuz or around the week of Yud Zayin B'Tammuz. And we know that this is the day when they stopped sacrificing the Korban HaTamid. Now the story explains that at the time of the Second Temple, the Romans wanted to come to destroy Yerushalayim. The city of Yerushalayim was under siege for 3.5 years. 3.5 years Yerushalayim was surrounded, and they were trying to break the walls. They could not break the walls. The great army of the Romans that won hundreds of wars, big countries, could not break the walls of Yerushalayim, and they could not understand why they're not able to break the walls. They made these huge elephants of steel banging into the walls. Nothing happened. They came with all the high-tech ways, and they could not penetrate the walls of Yerushalayim. They drove them crazy. 3.5 years. One time, there were many Jews living out of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim was under siege, but there were many Jews living out. One time, they grabbed this old man and they're telling him, tell me, how come we can't break the walls of Yerushalayim? What's going on there? You know what we tried? We did anything in our power. Nothing has ever stopped us. How come we can't break the walls of Yerushalayim? So the old man says, listen, because the Jews have special protection. They have a very powerful wall of protection, and you can't break it. And they're like, what is this powerful wall that you're talking about? And he told them they have a certain sacrifice that they do twice a day. It's called Korban HaTamid. That's their power. And as long as they're sacrificing this Korban, you're not going to be able to break them ever. And that's their wall of resistance. That's their power. And they're like, okay, what do they sacrifice? So he tells them they sacrifice 2 sheep. One in the morning, one at night. So the Romans are like, they're under siege. for 3.5 years. Where do they have sheep? How can they have sheep to sacrifice? So this old man was not such a nice man, and he told them they have a secret. Every day they have a hole, they have a tunnel from the inside of the city, and this tunnel reaches the outside of the wall. And every day they would lower down in a basket a little bit of money, a certain amount of money, and somebody brings them from this tunnel 2 sheep. They buy the sheep from outside. And they lower down the basket with the money and they pull up the sheep. So these Romans were like, okay, we got the point. They found the tunnel, they found the hole. And on the night of Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, early in the morning, the Kohanim, they were lowering down the basket full of money. And as they're pulling up the rope, expecting to see 2 sheep, the Romans put a pig instead of the 2 sheep. As they pulled the pig up, the pig put his hands on the wall of Yerushalayim, and that was the end of the story. And that day they were able to break the walls of Yerushalayim, enter into Beit HaMikdash, destroy everything, and from that day on we never had the opportunity to sacrifice the Korban HaTamid anymore. And unfortunately, till Mashiach is going to come, we still don't have Beit HaMikdash, and only way of us doing Korban HaTamid is with our mouth. Now, what's with this sacrifice? Why? What's so special about this sacrifice? That this was our power of resistance. So we know that the way it worked in Beit HaMikdash, there were a group of Kohanim. To be exact, there was 22 groups of Kohanim. This is called Mishmarot Kehuna. And these groups of Kohanim, 24 groups, they would have shifts in working in Beit HaMikdash. It worked out that every group would work about twice a year. Because every group, every mishmeret, every shift would work for 1 week. Then the new group would come in and the other group would leave. And the way it worked is that they used to do a lottery. Early in the morning, all the Kohanim, all the priests were standing outside in the courtyard, and they would do like a lottery by saying number 1 is going to slaughter the animal, number 2 is going to clean the altar, number 3 will do this and that, number 4 will do that. That's what it was, a lottery. And then they would count. They didn't count the heads. You're not allowed to count heads. That can cause ayn hara. So they used to put their hands out. And then they would make a lottery. And whoever would be number 1, that would be the priest that will be in charge of slaughtering. I mean, there wasn't only 1 priest, but number, let's say 2, will be cleaning the altar. Number 3, and so forth. There would be a lottery. That's how they used to do it. How many Kohanim in each mishmeret, or to do each thing? Each thing would be a few Kohanim. So, for the entire mishmeret, it would change. There wasn't a certain amount of Kohanim. So, the way it was done with a lottery. And how it worked is that in the beginning, the first thing they used to do early in the morning, they used to clean the altar. Because the night before was, they would burn sacrifices, there were a lot of ashes, all the wood would be burned. So the first thing they used to do is clean the altar. This is called Haramat Adeshin. All the remainings, they used to have these special tools, and they used to lift it up, all the ashes and all the dirt, take it out. The first thing they used to do is clean the Mizbeach. Then, in the beginning, close to Alot HaShachar, to dawn, they would all stand together. Like I said, they would make the lottery and start appointing each one what they're going to do. And the first thing they used to do is to slaughter that sheep, the slaughtering of the Korban HaTamid. The next thing they used to do is take the blood, and they used to sprinkle it. They had to sprinkle it on the sides of the altar, some of it on the altar. They had the whole service. Then they used to take, I know it's not so interesting of hearing, they used to take parts, the organs of the sheep, and put it on different parts of the Mizbeach. There was a certain order. This is called Zrikat Evarim, that they used to take the organs out. After that, all the Kohanim, not all the Kohanim, some of the Kohanim would read the Kriyat Shema, they would say Shema Yisrael out loud. After that, they would burn all the organs of what would be remaining. After that, they would give the priestly blessing, the Birkat Kohanim. And after that, the Leviim would come out and start singing the Shir Shel Yom, the psalm of the day. And each time was different. There was like a whole party over there. And that was the order of the sacrifice. And every day they would repeat the same order. Since we don't have the Beit HaMikdash and we don't have the altar, we do the exact same thing when we pray Shacharit. In the beginning, we start saying Korbanot. After, when we say Korbanot, we read the portion that explains exactly what the Kohanim used to do. Our sages say, since we don't have our temple and we don't have the altar, then the verse the sages use is V'neshalmach parim sfatenu, that our bulls will be instead of our lips. Our lips will be instead of our bulls. So we read everything that they used to do. So we read the Seder of the Korbanot. After that, we do Psukei de Zimra. Psukei de Zimra, it's the same time that they used to slaughter the animal and then sprinkle the blood and then put the Evarim. Then the Kohanim used to say Shema, then we say Kriyat Shema. Then they used to burn the organs of the animal. That's for us Tfilat Shmona Esrei. And then we have in Tfilat Shmona Esrei Birkat Kohanim. Then that's when the Kohanim used to do Birkat Kohanim. And then we say Shir Shel Yom. That's when the Leviim used to come. So we follow the same idea in our prayers. And of course comes the big question. So what's this concept of this Korban? Why do we do? What's so special about this sacrifice? And why do we do that? To a point that even Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to, instead of telling me what to do, tell your people to start offering this Korban. The point in this sacrifice, that it's done persistent every day, every morning, every night, the same idea, is that there's a certain connection that can only be done through a long period of time. Any type of connection. Whether it's a good friend, whether it's a husband and wife, connections can only be built on a very long period of time. You can't be best friends with somebody after 2 days. You can't be your best friend. A best friend is after 20 years, 30 years that you went through a whole life together. Same thing with a husband and wife. They can have unbelievable love for each other. But only after 50 years of marriage, the connection is solid. It's a strong connection. They went through their entire life together. So a good connection can only be built with time. And one example for it is that, you know the story with Rabbi Akiva, that Rabbi Akiva, when he was 40 years old, that's when he became religious. For 40 years, he was an Am Haaretz. He didn't even know how to read. Now imagine a 40-year-old man going to yeshiva with 3-year-olds because he didn't know how to read. He had to learn how to read. And the story says, of course, like in any story in the Torah, there are many versions, but the story says that he used to pump water and he used to bring water in buckets. And the place, the well where the water, where he used to pump the water, there was like a little place where the drops would constantly dropping of the water. And at some point he saw like a hole in the rock, which made him understand. He thought that he's 40 years old and he will never understand the Torah. And he saw how the dropping of the dripping of the drops of water made a hole in the stone. And he said, if water, by being very persistent, and one drop of another drop and another drop, eventually made a hole in the rock, same idea with me. When I will be very persistent, at some point the rock of my brain the Torah will be able to penetrate into the brain. So, the thing is that persistence, that's the secrets of success. We cannot be successful if we're not persistent. A lot of people, they're looking for success in whatever it is. It can be in business, it can be in their learning Torah, it can be in building a relationship. The secret of our success is persistence. That's why the Korban Tamid was the secret of our success.
What does Tamid mean?
Tamid is always. Is a repetition, because they used to do it one in the morning, one at night, one in the morning, one at night, the same thing all the time. Now we see that we do many things in our existence that we do every day. Every day we pray. Every day we pray the same boring text. A whole hour every day we repeat it. I'm saying boring because I don't know many people that they find it very interesting. I mean, we gotta be honest here. I don't know many people that are like, oh, I can't wait to read again what I read yesterday for 50 minutes. Most people find the praying very boring. They find it annoying. They find it like a burden. That's why praying is called avodah. Avodah, it's a job. I come and I do my job. Most people also find their job boring. Most people find their life boring. They say every day, I wake up, the same idea, getting the kids ready to school, making the sandwiches, cleaning the house, doing the laundry, every day is the same thing. And most people, they find their entire life boring. So that in itself is a whole different problem that I told you. We're going to talk about it. I don't know when we're going to do it, if we'll have time to do it before I leave, is the fact that we have to get excitement into our life. That our life is kind of dull and kind of boring, and most people, they live their life in a very boring way, so to say, and it's what takes away their excitement. And we're obligated by the Torah to serve Hashem with happiness, but we don't find in the Torah a place that tells me that I have to serve Hashem with excitement. And about 70 years ago, there was a very special tzaddik who was known as the Rebbe from Piasetzna. Unfortunately, he was murdered in the Holocaust. And in one of his books, he's talking about how important it is that we have to add excitement to our life. And without excitement, life is boring. And when life is boring, I start slowly deteriorating. And I don't want to do what I want to do. And we're going to talk about it, not today, but Bezrat Hashem, maybe before I leave, how you bring excitement into my Avodat Hashem. Because without excitement, you're not going to do anything. You get excited when you're getting the keys to your brand new Mercedes. So you give 2 days that you get excited. Or if you're going on your vacation that you've been waiting for an entire year, you get excited. So I need to get excited when I'm coming to shul. If you remember, I told you many times that when I became religious, I used to start buying kosher products, and I had to drive 60 miles to the kosher supermarket. I would get excited to walk into the supermarket. I had, butterflies in my stomach. That's how excited I got to buy kosher food. And we have to continue this excitement. And on the other hand, now we're doing everything in a mundane way. Everything is every day the same thing. And it kind of brings us to a point that this is, it's boring. Another day, another prayer, another Shabbat, the same mitzvah. Every year, the same holidays. Can we change the holidays? Maybe make it a little bit more interesting. One year we do these holidays, another year we'll do those holidays. Everything is repeating itself all the time. The concept of the repetition is because the persistence of doing something, that's the secrets of success. Nothing can come like that. Everything has to be done over and over before you get it right. You can't do something right from the beginning. There's no such a thing. Anything that you'll do, any trade you'll learn, you want to make a cake, you think it's going to come out good the first time, you have to do it 50 times before it will come out good. And then you get it after you bake the cake 50 times, then it will be good. We just learned now about Parashat Challah. I keep giving all the examples with my wife. Now you taste her challah, then you want to faint because it's so good. But you think I enjoyed the challah in the first few years of our marriage? No, I was the guinea pig. Every Shabbat I was like, So there were years that I would, I told you last class that what we used to do is every Shabbat I would buy, we used to call it the backup challah. So my wife used to do the challah, and every time I would come and I would make the shopping. She would tell me, did you get the backup challah? Yeah, don't worry, we got the backup challah. Because it come Shabbat, we would cut the challah, eat it, and be like, pull out the backup challah. So I would cut these little pieces of the challah because you have to eat the entire piece that you cut for the motzi. I would cut this little piece in case it didn't come out good, then it's not going to get stuck in my gum. So, Bemet, now some of you joined us for Shabbat. So my wife's challah right now, you really can faint from how amazing it is. But let me tell you, it took a couple years. I suffered a lot of stomach aches and a lot of nights that I had to eat not such good challah. So the point is that you can't get good at something right away. You have to work on it, and the only way to be successful is when you're very persistent. Our sages say, "En chacham ke baal hanisayon." The person who's really wise is the person who has experience. You want to go to a good lawyer, you're not going to choose a lawyer that just came out of law school. You want a lawyer that's in the trade for 40 years. Same thing with an accountant, same thing with a doctor, same thing with anything. Same thing with a rabbi. You have a question, you're not going to go ask a rabbi who's 23 years old who just got his smicha and he doesn't know anything. And he might know the text good, but he didn't answer this question 50 times or 500 times. The other day, my mom came to visit us, and she came with some article about an app, it's called the Mikveh app, I don't remember how it's called, and the app is a way to check when a woman has her cycle, and when there's stains, a rabbi has to check the stains. And this app is checking the stains. And I'm looking at the app and I'm like, and it says that it's accepted by many. I said, how can an app check the stain on the cloth? For 3,000 years, you have to bring it to the rabbi, and the rabbi has to look at it, in order to get hasmacha, to get the ordination, to be able to check a cloth and to give a psak if it's pure or not. You have to check at least 1,000 cloths. That's the how to get the ordination. You can't just look at it and say pure. And now they think an app can do the job of what a rabbi needs to take for years to look at it. I told my mom, this app will never be. Excuse me? Excuse me? We're in the middle of a class. It's not the time right now. If you want, you can wait till we're done, and then. So. An app cannot replace what a rabbi can look with his eyes, and takes him 1,000 times to go through it. And I told my mom, this app will never be accepted by any real rabbi. You can probably get the same rabbis that give the leniency to do all these things that I said before. You can always find the rabbis that will give you a leniency to do anything. To drive on Shabbat, to eat on Chametz on Pesach. You can find these rabbis. I said, these are the rabbis that will approve this app. Any normal rabbi will not approve such a thing. A human being needs to look at it, and you can't find a rabbi that just got his ordination to look at the cloth. When I went once to a rabbi, and I told him, I want to be a mohel. I want to be making circumcisions. So Baruch Hashem, I learned how to be a scribe. I learned how to be a shochet. I wanted to learn, not that I do it, it's not my profession, but I wanted to know how to do it. To know the actual, the practical and the theory. But the theory is nice, I want to do the practical. So I went to a rabbi and I told him I want to be a mohel. How do I become a mohel? So he said, okay, you have to learn the theory from the books, and then you have to go with a mohel and you have to see. And I told him, okay, so how long do I have to go with him? Probably, like I said, 3, 4, 5 years. You have to go to hundreds of britot, of Brit Milah, and look. You have to look what he's doing. I said, okay, I'll do that. And then I said, and what do I practice on? Well, you have to do it at some point. So he says, you do it on your sons. The first few times you have to do it on your son. And after that, you go and do it somewhere else. So I still didn't get the ordination to be a mohel. I hope I'll still have another son to be able to practice. But the point is that you can't do something one shot. And I used to go with a mohel for many britot and stand and look and see what he's doing. You have to look, constantly look. You can't practice. I mean, there's no product out there that you can practice on. So, and you can only become a good mohel by first looking for years. You have to look for years how he's doing it over and over and over. You just have to stand there. You have to be the assistant. Give me this, give me that, give me this, fine. But first you have to look. So you can't get good at anything without practicing over and over, and you have to have persistence. And most people, they fail because they don't have persistence. They try once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and then, okay, it didn't work out, I give up. So the secret to success is the persistence. And that's why the Tana that we were talking about, he says, no, the most important mitzvah is the Korban HaTamid. Because you can only be successful in serving Hashem with persistence. And that's why the text in the prayer is the same. Our sages thought about it. Don't think that they did not sit there. They sat there in the Sanhedrin and they're like, okay, should we make it exciting for them? Or should we make it boring for them? So they decided, no, you know what, we should not change the text every day. The text should be the same. Because it's going to take you many prayers to get to this one prayer that you do right. And you get it right at the end. Which comes, of course, we see a connection to the destruction of the temple, and Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, and the stopping of the Korban HaTamid. What's the concept of the Galut? Why do we need this Galut? Why do we need this exile? You know, the first exile was only 70 years. That I understand. Fair, 70 years, I got the point. Why have to be 2,000 years in exile? Well, what's the point? We got the point already, right? We had enough. Well, why smear it? Why is Hashem smearing this exile so long? We got the point. So, if you would ask, and look at it from the side of what's called musar, of rebuking, then the Torah of musar will tell you, listen, you sinned, you went against Hashem, pay that time, now you have to pay. As Hashem says, Shuvu elai, v'ashuva elechem. Very simple. You do tshuva, and I'll come back to you. As long as you don't do tshuva, very sorry, you're not getting your toy back. That's it. You know, there's a story that it says that there was once a king, and he had an only son. And he wanted to show everybody how much he loves the son. He wanted to create something unique, so he brought the best fabric in the world, and he hired somebody to sew a suit, and he made a beautiful, beautiful suit for the son. And the son wore the suit for the first time. It was unbelievable. Beautiful, beautiful suit, made from the best fabric. And the son went out to play, and within a few minutes he destroyed the entire suit. He came home, the father had a shock of his life, and he says, okay, nothing happened, nothing happened, my dear son, we'll make another one. And he brought, this time even better fabric, brought even more professional people, they made another suit again. He gives him the suit, the son wears it, after a few minutes he goes out to the sand and he plays with it and he ruins this one too. And he comes again with this dirty suit, it's totally ruined. The father gets upset again. He says, okay, no problem. You know what? This time I'm going to get even a better suit. I'm going to get even much better fabric, much more expensive threads. I'm going to find even a much better person to make it. But this time I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to keep the suit till you grow up and you are able to wear it without ruining it. So when we ask what is the point of the exile, If we're looking at it from a one direction that we need to be rebuked, so yes, Hashem says, I'm sorry to tell you, you ruined the first suit, you ruined the second suit. Of course, I'm talking about the Holy Temple. You ruined the first Bet HaMikdash with your sins. You ruined the second Bet HaMikdash with your sins. The third Bet HaMikdash I'm going to build, I'm going to keep it in Shamayim. Till you're ready, I'm not going to give it to you. Shuva alai v'ashuva lechem. You'll do tshuva, get your act together, I will come back to you and I'll give you the Bet HaMikdash. But we started the class with a story from Levi Yitzchak from Berdichov, so we're going to finish the class with the idea that comes from Chassidut, that Hashem is not punishing us. The galut, the exile, is not a punishment. The galut is to create something. The exile is there to create something. The story says that in the Holy of Holy, the Kodesh HaKodashim, there was two images. It's called the Kruvim. And they were like in a form of a human. One was a male and one was a female. Now every time that we did the will of Hashem, we as the nation of the Jews, they would face each other, but they would be hugging. And every time that we as a nation would sin, they would turn around away from each other. The story says that at the time when the Romans entered in the Holy of Holy, the Kodesh HaKodashim, which would seem like we're doing against the will of Hashem, they found the Kruvim hugging each other. Meaning that it has nothing to do with how we were behaving at the time of the destruction. The point of the exile is not the punishment, is to create something. And you know what happens at the time of the exile? That's when we really show Hashem how much we want to be close to Him. We don't have Bet HaMikdash, we don't have Kohanim, we don't have the revelation of the Shekhinah, we don't have anything. And we still serve Hashem with our entire might. We pray, we observe Shabbat, we eat kosher, we are particular about every little thing. This is done in exile. This is when we're showing the Kadosh Baruch Hu, even though we don't see you, even though we don't see any revelation, we don't have a Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't have the Bet HaMikdash, and we still serve Hashem with our entire might. That's the point of the exile, is to bring from in us this power that even without seeing Hashem, we're still serving Him. And for that we needed 2,000 years, because we needed persistence to get to do it, even though we don't see Kedusha, even though we don't see our godly revelation. And when we don't see a Moshe Rabbeinu, but we're still following the Torah. That's the point of the exile. The point of the exile is to create this connection, this deep, deep connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu that can only be done throughout a long period of time and can only be done with persistence. When you're persistent in something, that's when you find success. And that's the message of this parasha and this mitzvah, and it's all about persistence. You want to have success in your life? You want a successful marriage? It's only by working hard on the relationship. Yeah, there's going to be arguments, there's going to be fights, there's going to be disagreements. But that's part of the process. Same with the business, same when you want to learn something, same when you want to achieve anything. It's only with having persistence. And I'll tell you an interesting story about persistence. But before I tell you the story, you know, there is a place in the Talmud that it's talking about what do they ask the soul when it comes up to Shamayim. And the first thing that they ask the soul when it comes up to the heavenly court is if you were dealing business honestly. That's the first question they ask. They don't ask the neshama if it observed Shabbat. They asked if you were honest in business. If you didn't cheat in business, if you were honest, if you worked with integrity, that's the first thing they ask the soul. The second thing they ask the soul is, Kavata itim laTorah, is did you set time for learning Torah? The third thing they ask is if you expected Mashiach. Haim tzipita lageula. These are the three questions they ask a soul when it comes to the heavenly court. They don't ask it if you were observing Shabbat, eating kosher, and so forth. If you are dealing honestly, just goes to show you that in the heavenly court they care about honest. That's why I constantly keep repeating myself that Emet, just be honest. This is what Hashem cares about. Hashem cannot stand liars. The second thing is im kavata itim la Torah. If you set time to learn, doesn't matter how much you learn, even if it's an hour a week, but you had a set time and you did not cancel it. It's not in the right way of one time going to this class, one time going to that class. Is if you have a set class. You know, a few years ago they had a big party about the finishing of the entire Shas, the entire Talmud. And there was a certain man who went there to participate in the party because he finished the entire Shas. And his wife said, today I'm also finishing the Shas. And they were asked her, really? Why? So she said the story that one time her kids were not doing so good in school and they didn't know what to do. So the rabbi of the family suggested to the man to learn what's called Daf Yomi, that you learn every day one page in the Talmud. And he said, with learning the Daf Yomi, this will bring Yirat Shamayim, God-fearing to the kids, and they'll be doing much, much better. So not only the man used to do the Daf Yomi, the entire family was evolving around the studies. Every day between 7 to 8 was the class. So dinner had to be before anything, and nothing could move the class. The entire structure of the day was around the class of the man. On Erev Shabbat, on Shabbat, it was all around the class to make sure that the husband is not missing the class. So when he finished the entire Shas and he went to the party, to the big event, it's not a party, it's called a Siyum. So the wife said, I'm also finishing the Shas today because I was around my husband. My entire schedule was around his class. He was maybe attending the class, but I had to make sure that the dinner is before and the kids are after, and everything had to be, we went on a vacation, it had to be according to the, not missing the class. Everywhere that we went, he had to find a place where he can learn the page. And to finish the entire Shas, you know, for an average man can take his entire lifetime. But not a lot of people are able to do that. It's the persistence, constantly, one day after that. And this can only be done when you set a time to learn. And the Torah comes and tells you, you don't have to learn 15 hours a day. If you can, great, but if not, you make a time. This is called Itim la Torah. You make a set time that this is my class, even if it's once a week. And the persistence, that's what's bringing the success. And like I said, I want to finish with a quick story that I heard not too long ago about a certain businessman that he used to meet a lot of individuals throughout his business. And one time he met a certain individual and he was trying to affect him spiritually. So he went to his rabbi and he said, what should I tell this man to make him do a mitzvah? So the rabbi told him, tell him to observe Shabbat. So this merchant goes to his customer and he tells him, why don't you observe Shabbat? He says, listen, you know, observing Shabbat, that's a big thing, and my wife and this, and listen, I can't do that. Okay, so he goes back to his rabbi and he says, no, he doesn't want to observe Shabbat. He says it's too hard for him. He says, you know, why don't you tell him something simple? Tell him to eat kosher. Eating kosher doesn't really change much of your life. Okay, just you change your diet a little bit. So he goes back to his business friend, partner, and he tells him, why don't you eat kosher? Of course, I'm telling you the short version of the story. He didn't just came to him and tell him, eat kosher. He just went into conversation with him. So he says, listen, my wife, it's, you know, changing everything in the kitchen. My wife will never do such a thing. It's okay. We're fine where we are. A couple of years later, his wife got sick and unfortunately passed away. He came to comfort him during the Shiva. He felt this is an auspicious time to come and tell him about the kosher, and he tells him, listen, your wife passed away, why don't you change your eating habits, make the kitchen kosher, and you do that to the elevation of the soul of your wife. I'm sure she's sitting in heaven looking down and she wants you to start eating kosher. The guy said, fine, I don't know, my wife is gone, who's going to cook for me? I'm not going to cook, I don't care. He says, listen, you make your kitchen kosher and you take on yourself to start eating kosher, I'll make sure you have food. He says, fine, okay. The religious guy used to go to like this kosher store, something similar to what we have here, like Arale, that has ready-made food, that homemade food. And every day, every week, he would buy 7 portions, and he would freeze them. He would go all the way up on a train, a long time, to his home and give him all these kosher food that had enough portion for the whole week. After a year and a half of every week buying these kosher meals, which was very expensive. He lived in New York. This was, I think, in the 60s or the 70s, when kosher food was expensive. And schlepping and driving up there. And after a year and a half of delivering kosher food, one time the man tells him, listen, I want you to stop. You have to stop with this. I'm not even eating the food. I give it to my dog. He felt like the man slapped him in his face. A whole year and a half I'm coming up here, I'm spending my money. I spend my time to come and give you kosher food. Now you're telling me you're giving it to your dog? You're not even eating it? He got so upset, and needless to say, he stopped delivering the food. Many, many, many years later, this young man goes to a family to a Shabbat meal. And this young man is observing what's going on in the meal, and they keep telling him, now we wash for bread, now we do this, now we do that. It was a Shabbat meal, and they serving food, and he's like, no, I didn't come to eat. I came to see what's going on here. And they're like, what do you mean you came to see what's going on here? He's like, I'm not hungry. I didn't come for the food. I came to see how a Jewish family conducts their table. And the man tells him, why? And he says, my grandfather told me that many years ago there was a Jewish man that came for a year and a half to deliver kosher food to his home for a year and a half. My grandfather never even ate the food. He just threw it. He gave it to the dog. And I'm curious, my grandfather told me that, and I'm curious to see these Jewish people, why would they do all this? I want to see the food. So the man tells him, I'm that man who delivered the food to your grandfather. This is a true story. It's not an invention. Needless to say that the young man became much, much more observant, and this young man is now a fully observant Jew. That goes to show you that the persistence of this man going there every week with the food and the money, on the surface didn't show results. The person threw it to the dog. Later on, 20, 30, 40 years ago, the grandkid heard about it and came to see what it is, and that affected the grandkid. It goes to show us the power of persistence. When you are persistent in something, that's the secret to the success. So things that look to you very boring and repetitive, like praying every day, every week another Shabbat, every year another holiday, it seems very boring. But for now, we don't see the results. We don't see what's coming out of this persistence. One day, another prayer, another mitzvah. Every day, the same thing. But down the line, we're going to see the result of the persistence, which comes to teach us that now, with 2,000 years, every day, another day in exile, we had enough of it. Very soon Mashiach is going to come, and we're going to see, wow, now we understand why we had to go 2,000 years. I'm looking at this building out here, how they're building it. I'm following every brick in that building. Every brick, and I got friendly with the guy who's doing the bricks because I need him to fix our building. And he told me, I'll finish this project, I'll come to your building. And I'm following every day, and I'm friends with the owner. And he said, you see, we did this. I told him, I'm watching every brick in your building. Don't worry. And I see that every day he's adding a few more bricks. He's doing it already for 2 months. He's a professional. Look at the job that he's doing. This building is an original. This building was like that. This building is 320 years old. That's how it came. This is now a refurbished building, but you see the style of putting the bricks is how they originally used to do it. Brick by brick by brick. You can't build a beautiful building overnight, and definitely not with 2 bricks. You need a lot of bricks, and a lot of time, and a lot of patience. And this mitzvah of Korban Tamid comes and teaches me it's not about the immediate result. It's about the result that comes after a long time and a lot of effort, and just being persistent over and over. And when you are persistent, you will reach to great achievements. And this is the secret to our success. And if we are continuing to be very persistent in our Avodat Hashem, in following the Torah and the mitzvot, I know it's hard, this exile. This exile is also hard for me too. Everybody's suffering from this exile. And this week we're going to get a punch to the face to remember how hard this exile is. And 3 weeks from now we're also going to get another punch to their face in Tisha B'Av. But it just comes to teach us that we have to be persistent in our Avodat Hashem, and at some point we will reach the goal, and that's when we're going to see the result of our hard work. Bezrat Hashem, we should see it very soon with the coming of Mashiach. Have a beautiful week.